Who told you that? The lie that shaped how you see yourself. Genesis 3:11. And he said, "Who told thee that thou wast naked?" It's important to notice that in the beginning, when man shifted from the plan, Yah did not immediately correct the behavior. Instead, he asked a question: who told you that? You see, the issue was not just the action, it was the source of what was believed, received, and acted upon. Something had been introduced that did not come from Yah. And once it was received and believed, everything else followed. The embarrassment produced the hiding. The hiding intensified the shame. The shame multiplied the separation. Now, when we look at this from the perspective of a woman, this pattern is still present in our lives today. Not in a garden, but in how many of us see ourselves. Because at some point, something was said, whether through words, experiences, culture, or the expectations of others, none of which came from Yah. Yet it was received by us in our hearts. And once it was believed, it began to shape how we think, how we respond, and ultimately, how we live. Genesis 3:4-5. But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die, for Elohim knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like Elohim, knowing good and evil." Again, we see the same pattern. The enemy did not force anything. He simply introduced doubt into our thoughts, doubt of what we had already received from Yah. He suggested that something was missing, that there was more to gain outside of what Yah had already established and promised. That same lie is still being presented to us today. Not as direct or always directly, but through comparison, pressure, social media, entertainment, and the constant suggestion that you are not enough as you are, that you need to become something or someone else, a better version of yourself, that you need to add to or subtract from what Yah already formed. Genesis 1:27. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created he him. Male and female created he them. The truth is, you are and were already created in his image, established in his likeness. There was nothing and is nothing lacking, nothing missing. But once that lie was received, everything shifted. Now, instead of walking in what was established, there was hiding, there was shame, and there was separation. If we're really being honest about it, many women are still living in that cycle today, hiding parts of themselves out of fear, shrinking in certain spaces, dreading rejection, performing to meet expectations for acceptance and belonging. Not because Yah required it or even requested it, but because of what has been received and believed from others. And for many, those beliefs were not even personally chosen. They were inherited, passed down through generations, through what was seen, taught, normalized, and oftentimes traumatized into us. Jeremiah 16:19. O Yahuwah, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come to thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there is no profit. So now we must ask the question again. Who told you that? Because if the belief did not come from Yah, then it cannot produce alignment with him. This is where it begins to touch our daily lives. because how you see yourself will shape how you live. It influences how you show up for Yah, for yourself, for your family, and in this world as his light. If you believe you are lacking, you may begin to move outside of what Yah said, trying to become something else. If you believe you are not enough, you may accept things that are not aligned just to feel secure or accepted. And slowly, obedience to Yah can begin to feel like restriction instead of protection. But you must return to what He has said about you. You must know who you are in Him at the core of it all, outside of the noise. Psalm 139:14, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. This is why the lie continues to evolve. The enemy knows the truth about you and will continue to present alternatives in an effort to pull you away from what Yah has already established. Sometimes it sounds like this, that grace means obedience is no longer necessary, that you can live according to how you feel and still remain fully aligned. But again, who told you that? Matthew 5:17, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Yahusha did not remove the standard. He revealed how to walk in it and empowered us by his Ruach HaKodesh to do so. John 14:15, if ye love me, keep my commandments. Love was never separated from obedience. That separation was taught and often inherited. And this is important to acknowledge because for some, there may be tension here. You may be thinking about grace. You may be thinking about what you've been taught, and that is understood. But the goal is not to defend what we've been taught. The assignment is to return to what the word of Yah actually says. Because not everything that has been received was fully understood. Some things were incomplete while others were taken out of context. And some were presented in a way that shifted their true meaning. This is where it becomes practical, because this is not just about identity in theory. This actually shows up in how we live out our daily lives, in our decision making, in our relationships, and how we set healthy boundaries, or whether we set them at all, and what we accept and tolerate. When the word says one thing, but our feelings suggest another, what is your response? Over time, it becomes easy to build a life on mixture, part truth, part compromise. And mixture will always fight against kingdom alignment. We must settle once and for all that the law was never given to restrict us. It was given to guide and protect us, to keep you from the very deception that began in the garden and continues to this day, to keep you aligned with what was established from the beginning. Grace does not remove our responsibility. It gives us the ability and the desire to walk in it. So the question is no longer, do I have to obey? The question becomes, do I love him enough to trust what he said over what I feel and walk in it? My dear sister, remember, John 14:6, Yahusha saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. This is what Yah is restoring in his daughters, not just identity, but alignment in him. So take a moment, pause, and ask Yah, Where have I believed something about myself that you never said? And where has that belief caused me to step outside of your alignment?